Hey, hello, howdy, how you doing? I'm gonna keep this short so we can get started right away. Don't Starve is renowned as one of the greatest survival games ever created. It's been around for like a decade now, and I've never played it before, so today I'm going to attempt to survive for 30 days in Don't Starve. Quick disclaimer, this is a full blind playthrough. I've been avoiding all tutorials, guides, tips and tricks, vids, all that junk, so mistakes will be made early and often. Please feel free to leave me some tips down below so that I can continue to get better at Don't Starve. And with that, let's get into it. My first attempt started off so smoothly. On my first day, I did the normal survival things. I found some twigs, pulled some grass, picked up some flint, and foraged for berries and carrots. During the night, I built a campfire and cooked my carrots and berries. By the end of my second day, I had crafted a science machine and was already learning prototypes and crafting my first backpack. On day 6, I encountered my first hound attack and even crafted a spear. By day 8, I wandered across a wormhole that I jumped through, which spit me out some distance away. Everything was going so smoothly, and I was incredibly confident in my abilities. I mean, I do this shit for a living. How hard could one survival game really be? Oh, I'm just dead. Frogs. Death by frogs. This was actually a great thing to have happen early on because I just spent the last 8 days or so recording in a display capture where a chunk of my screen was just cut off. So you're welcome for dying. Anyway, the big appeal of Don't Starve, similar to games like Project Zomboid, is that when you die, you're dead. You start over from scratch with nothing. This amplifies your mistakes and always leaves you feeling uneasy in any situation. My second attempt was much shorter. At first, I thought the rampant forest fires would be the end of me, but I was naive. What I should have been worried about was stumbling upon a police station and getting the warm NYPD greeting that we've become accustomed to. Now that I finally stopped, it's time to get into the real run. Day 1 started off much like I've been doing in my other attempts, foraging for supplies and any food that I could come across. While exploring the surrounding area, I uncovered a pighead shrine. I didn't realize this at the time, but these are actually called touchstones and they allow you to respawn once at each location. I'll touch more on it later. See what I did there? Sorry bitches, it's 2024 and I'm in peak dad joke mode. Gonna be a long one. Anyway, that evening I made a fire and cooked some food as well as crafted a science machine, which allowed me to spam prototypes until the sun rose on day 2. At which point I crafted a chest and started throwing my extra junk in before setting off to explore the area some more. While on my glorious journey, I got to witness an epic battle between the sketchings of spiders and pigs. I'm sure there's some deep poetic metaphor here, but it's also like 4 in the morning and my brain is fried, so draw it yourself. While they slaughtered each other in the world's saddest turf war, I went around and looted the corpses and destroyed some of the spider nests in the area. Eventually, I ended up siding with the pigs, using them as bait when the spiders attacked me. This turned out to be a great strategy and allowed me to walk away with a ton of silk and monster meat, though I did almost die several times in the process. Day 3 was a continuation of yesterday. I crafted a bird trap since that seemed like an easy way to obtain food, and then set back off in the direction of the pigs. While exploring, I found a totally normal tree and chopped it down because I had a bad feeling about it. Since I'm a greedy bitch, I couldn't be satisfied with what happened yesterday and went right back to the spider nests, continuing my conquest until I stumbled over a crank thing. I have no idea what this is or what it does, but if it summons Soulja Boy, I think we're all gonna be in for a good time. That evening, I finally built a fire pit and cooked a mandrake that I found in the woods. If you've seen Harry Potter or read the books, it's those little plant freaks that scream so loud they knock you out. And when you cook them, well, spoiler alert, they knock you out. The health and hunger boosts are worth it though. Most of day 4 was just spent running around and foraging for grass and saplings, as well as logs. That was until that afternoon when a lightning storm lit a tree on fire, which in turn lit half the fucking forest on fire. During the night, I crafted a basic farm and planted my first seeds. This is a sentence that I feel like serial killers end up writing, but on day 5, I killed a butterfly. The trick for me was learning that you have to wait for them to land on the flowers first. They're great for quick and easy health, and once you get the hang of it, they're actually pretty easy to kill. That's really the only big highlight of the day, to be honest. I crafted some healing salve, a lightning rod to prevent more forest fires, shout out Smokey, and a top hat because I felt classy. Day 6 was pretty eventful though. I found butter while roaming the plains, which, I mean, who the fuck is leaving butter on the floor? Outside of that, I got into a fist fight with the hounds, walking away with some monster meat before deciding to head south. If I've learned anything about Don't Starve, it's that frogs are not to be fucked with. Seriously, I'd rather fight pigs and spiders and hounds than these things. They're so annoying. After almost dying to killer frogs, I placed 2 traps to try and catch some rabbits because I'm used to Zomboid where rabbit traps are the most OP thing in the game. The exact opposite of this game. I need to expand my storage, but I need boards for that, and boards cost several logs to make, so I needed to get to work. That afternoon, I was able to harvest my first crop. Oh, well, hey, it's 2024, we're all inclusive here, even if that means growing dicks on plants. The next morning, I set off to push my views onto the surrounding wildlife. See, I read that you can feed pigs meat and befriend them, which will cause them to fight and die for you, or, chop down some trees or some other boring shit like that. This, in turn, led to some pretty heavy pig-on-pig violence. Once we'd overtaken the weaker pigs, I turned focus back to the spiders for some unfinished business. Since it was getting dark and I was still a ways away from base, I chose to set up a small camp next to a pig house, waiting out the night until sunrise. Once the sun was finally up and I no longer required a nightlight, I dropped my gear off back at base, grabbing my fishing pole, and set out for some good old-fashioned redneck fun. Fishing in Don't Starve is really simple, at least at this point. From what I've read, the ponds here regenerate fish over time as well, but there's also longer time delays between bites as you continue to fish a pond, at least until the new fish regenerate. All this really means is that if there's a ton of ponds around like there are here, I can keep bouncing between them every 2 to 3 fish and I won't really notice a difference. The hardest part of all this was simply having to deal with all of the frogs in the area. Looking back, a smarter player would simply craft a ton of traps and then place them around the pond they were fishing. But I'm Alex Jones levels of dipshit, so I didn't think about that until weeks later. When I wasn't fishing, I was wandering the swamp area where I stumbled onto an eye bone thing, and Chester, the walking crate that reminds me a ton of a dog. Day 10 was all about crafting. I made a hammer, which never gets used in the rest of this playthrough, and then checked and moved around my rabbit traps because they're in terrible spots. After that, I went back and crafted 2 more garden plots that I could use and abuse over the next 3 weeks. Professor Garlic would be so proud of me. I spent the morning of day 11 mining. There's a stone biome just to the south of me that had a ton of rocks and nodes there for me to smack around. When I wasn't mining, I was busy dealing with another hound attack. In the afternoon, I switched focus to gathering more logs. That was until I was attacked by Treebeard from Lord of the Rings, sending me screaming off into the distance. After narrowly escaping death against a killer tree, I struck back by eating a cooked mandrake, which in turn knocked me out until the following morning. Once I regained consciousness, I crafted an alchemy engine before spending some time crafting prototypes such as wood flooring and stone walls. I also learned how to use a thermal stone, at least, I think. It seems you can heat it up at the campfire and then throw it in your inventory, which I think helps keep you warm while I travel in the winter. I crafted some armor, but it removes your backpack, so I'll need to figure out how to navigate that as well, but I'm glad I found it out early before trying it in action. Remember that stone biome I was talking about the other day? Well, there's a shit ton of bees here, but I have a net now, which means I can officially declare war on the bees and avenge the death of Nicolas Cage. When all was said and done, I managed to walk away from the whole fiasco with 2 blueprints, which I think is worth it, even if they almost killed me in the process. After a day of battling the bees, I returned home to find my camp infested with eye flower things. I have absolutely no idea what it is, but I'm close to death, so I built a small camp nearby to heal up as much as I could throughout the night. The next morning, I sucked it up and walked over to do epic battle with a flower. I targeted the eyes first because, well, that's all Wilson fucking says. Once those were eliminated, all I had to do was walk over to the flower and slap it a few times before it dissipated, leaving me with a fleshy bulb. Not sure what that does either, but when you examine it, you're told you can start a meat farm with it, which sounds like a weird OnlyFans ad, but I'll take it. Since this took up a ton of time, I spent the rest of the day kiting the killer tree away from my base, since I didn't want to risk it sneaking up on me during the night. I spent most of the morning of day 15 chopping down a section of burnt trees before using some of my pine cones to plant a few rows of new trees. After that, I moved on down to the swamp to look for some cut reeds, but was unsuccessful. It's one of the issues with the blind playthrough where I'm not entirely sure if this is a swamp biome, even if there's frogs and ponds here. Because of this, I wasn't sure if I was supposed to be finding the reeds here or if I was in the wrong biome. There's also the issue of constantly having to deal with all of these frogs. I did read that traps can be used on them though, so I decided to go that route. Once the sun rose on day 16, I ran back down to the ponds and set a few more traps before getting some fishing in. This lasted for all of about 5 seconds before another wave of hounds commenced. Obviously, I was incredibly underprepared for this, and the only thing I could think to do was to kite them up by the pigs in the north and hope they'd aggro onto each other. Since I'm close to death, the only thing I could think to do was spend a day looking for butterflies like I was Will Smith before the slap debacle. In my free time, I dug up some grass and saplings to replant them near the base. My goal is to have a few mini farms like this for saplings, grass, and bushes that I can just spam. There's also these beefalo nearby that I've been stealing shit from. No, like literally stealing their poop in order to fertilize these plants. On day 18, I shaved my beard by accident while trying to shave the beefalo. Apparently, they need to be asleep, so I'll need to come back during the night, but I saw that you need their wool to make winter hats, and with winter right around the corner, cue the Game of Thrones meme, I need to start preparing. I mean, I really should have started prepping a while ago, but that's the past. Anyway, I jumped through another wormhole, which spit me out next to the Pig King. It's nice to see Amy Slayton still getting work. Good for her. All jokes aside, there's a ton of pig houses here. It's like a whole village set up around the king. I also found a miner hat nearby, which was really cool. I'm excited to try that out. Since there's only a few days left before winter, I wanted to get some real exploring in, so I set out north on day 19, not really looking for anything important, but hoping to find some pretty cool shit. After a few minutes of roaming, I walked in front of a tail bird and managed to kill it, stealing its egg in the process. Around this time, I found another touchstone and activated this one. Remembering that I still needed to go back and hit the first, I turned back to go find that one as well. Day 20 was quiet. I spent most of the morning chopping down trees in order to craft more chests to make a legitimate storage area. That night, I grabbed a torch and ran over to the beefalos, shaving them for their wool and making a winter hat out of it. Day 21 saw another round of hounds. At this point though, I'm smart enough to know that I'm not skilled enough to take them on, so I ran and sought out the beefalos to protect me. I reused the same tactic that I did with the pigs and just ran around until the hounds aggroed the beefalos, after which they completely skull-fucked the dogs into oblivion. Immediately after this, however, I was greeted with a massive thunderstorm. I'm gonna need to make an umbrella at some point, which I need pigskin for. My plan here is to use the collected monster meat from today and recruit some pigs to attack the tribe near the Pig King. The next morning, I hopped back through the wormhole and began converting a few pigs to the cause. Anyway, enjoy the Battle of the Pigs. I don't really want to talk about it, but I froze to death on day 23. Let's just move on. After waking up the following morning, I ran back and retrieved all of my gear before mining rocks in order to craft a thermal stone. Again, I'm just assuming this will keep me warm, but if I'm wrong, I'm sure someone's already corrected me in the comments. I've also noticed that these ghost things are stalking me. Again, someone please let me know if I'm wrong here, but I'm guessing that it's due to the low sanity, and I'll only get worse as my sanity continues to sink. Anyway, I made some crock pots and a drying rack that I'm sure I'll get some use out of one day. I need food though, like desperately. In an attempt to avoid breaking the game's only rule, I headed north to fight the pigs that I once used to save my life. Now they'd be saving it in a different manner. I did some research after making a crock pot and found that meatballs seem to be the best meal in the game, so I used whatever food I could afford to lose and cooked my first crock pot meal. Day 26 brought more hounds, which led to me sprinting back to the beefalos. Side note, do you know how hard it is to not call these things muffalos, like the ones in RimWorld? I've had to redo this voiceover so many times, it's ridiculous. Anyway, after barely surviving the hound attack, I ended up using all 4 monster meat, thinking I'd made something incredible, only to end up with a meat lasagna that'll literally kill me if I put it in my mouth. can only imagine what Gordon Ramsay would think of this. I completely forgot that I just killed a ton of pigs the day before and had some leftover meat, so I ended up cooking that in order to, not starve to death. Once I had a bit more health, I just said f it and slammed the lasagna as well, leaving me at 2 health. After the events of day 26, I needed to find a way to heal. Because I've done absolutely no planning, I'm basically just screwed, so I spent a lot of time just wandering around, finding some seeds and berries, and then cooking those to heal as much as possible. It's also worth mentioning that my sanity has been plummeting these last few days. The next day, I set back out to go fight some more pigs since I was starving to death, despite the game repeatedly telling me not to. Was able to walk away from the fight with 2 meat and was able to turn them into meatballs while cooking the other piece. It should be enough to get me through the next day, but I'll need to keep going back for more. During the night, I was assaulted by a ghost as well. Killing it rewards you with nightmare fuel, but much like really everything in the game so far, I have no fucking clue what it's used for. On day 29, I farmed some more berries so that I could hopefully make some more meatballs after killing a few pigs. That being said, this doesn't feel like a recipe for success long term. Eventually, I'm either going to fuck up while fighting the pigs, or I'm going to run out of berries and not be able to make any more meals. That night, I encountered 2 more nightmares, which were a pain in the ass to deal with. The color is fading from the screen, and I couldn't tell if that was due to the insanely low sanity, or if it was due to my health being practically 0. Eventually though, I was able to take down both of them and survive the night, officially making it to day 30. Having made it to day 30, I can confidently say, this game is fucking difficult. At least to someone going in blind. It's incredibly addicting though. I had a ton of fun struggling through this, but if you're like me and haven't played the game before, I highly recommend looking up some guides and walkthroughs before playing. There's so many items that I just have no clue how to utilize, and it really feels like a ton of planning needs to go into this before you actually sit down to play. At least if you're planning to set yourself up for a long run. If you've made it to the end, I just want to say thank you for watching. It's 2024, and I'm trying to expand my scope a bit and try some different games out. Please feel free to drop some tips on how I can improve and what I could have done better. I need the help, and it's a game I do really want to get better at playing. That being said, it's about time for me to get out of here. I appreciate you all. Stay safe, and thanks for stopping by.